you like you need food, but, why the fuck would you not want to live with them? How would you survive without them in some ways? Our next reader, I met him too many years ago. We were actually roommates for a year. I remember most of it. At that time, he was known as Mark Plummer. He had already been a writer for Melody Maker, which was the equivalent of Rolling Stone in England. He had toured with rock and roll bands covering them. He was managing Chris Isaak and musicians at that time. I believe he got his first taste of music, as I recall, from being a young boy and going to a hotel or club and picking up Otis Redding's bags and carrying them, and doing that for about a week as they had a bus tour around England. At the end of the week, and running errands for the band, getting them American cigarettes. At the end of the week, the Otis or his manager gave him the amount of money that was equivalent to an adult's wages in England at that time. And I don't think he ever turned back. When I met him, many of us already thought he was a fictional character at times. He's gone through many changes, and now as Brixton Key has written a book for maybe his alter ego or one side of his life on Charlie 6, and here is Brixton Key.
Funny Keith should say that, because this chapter's about the time Charlie has been expelled from school and he's really just arranged the furniture. This is about the time Charlie's been expelled from school. He's hanging around with his mum and he's looking for something to do. And he's dealing with gangsters. Big-time gangsters who don't really like him. So I languished at home with Rosie, my mum, in an easy camaraderie, waiting for Morris to return from the continent. My meeting with his partner, Wolf, was a right pisser. If Nat hadn't kindly driven me into Soho, I might have ended up with more than a bruised ego. After cursing me out for mucking up my education, Wolf told me he'd arranged for a job. He'd arranged for a job for me as an office boy. As an office boy, I said, fuck you. At a publishing company owned by a mate of his. I could learn the business running errands. I told him to stuff it. Hang on, I've got pencil lines everywhere here and it's getting very confusing. I told him to stuff it. That one day I'd buy his management company from him and he'd be my messenger boy. He told me to piss off. Escalating the stakes, I told him fuck off. It was then that Nat came between us. Let's get going, Charlie, he said, keeping himself between me and Wolf. You're making a mistake, Nat, Wolf told him. Jack the lad here needs a sound thrashing. The only mistake I made, Nat said, was betting against Charlie. Well, he's a fool and you'll pay for it. Now, you're the fool, Wolf. You should have offered him a decent job. Morris will hear about this. Fuck Morris, he said. No. I pointed right at him. The customers at the counter looking leery as I raised my voice. Ready to get out of our way, hoping we was resorted to a good fight. I'll make you my messenger boy. I will. I'm going to see to it. And I'll see to you when your fucking old man returns from the continent, he shouted at me, as I gave him the two-finger salute leaving the bar. You thieving little bastard. When we got outside the pub, walking down Dean Street to Nat's Cortina, he said, bloody hell, Charlie, you put me in a right dodgy position. He's dangerous right now. You shouldn't have got in that last job. He's sensitive. So am I, I said. So what? Come on, let's go to Wow Records. Norden's got to have something from me. We'll make him put you on the payroll. Wolf's a wanker, who cares? If you think he scares me, he's got another fool coming. Except for Norden weren't there. The whole scene was going dead on me. He was away relaxing at his country retreat. Nat said he knew where Sean lived. We drove to Henley-on-Thames. But when we got to his Tudor mansion, surrounded by manicured gardens, we were told that he was off shopping in Morocco. Nat looked at me and said, "This is all Morris is doing. Your dad's getting on your back. We might as well drive home to Rosie." "Now, rub a drink at the bull's head," I said. "We should think about it." "Maybe not," Nat said as he got into the thick late afternoon traffic, congesting the dual carriageway on the way back towards London's suburbs. "I saw a guitar player sitting in with the Graham Bond organisation last week. Man, he's fucking ace, and he's young like you. We should think about managing him together. He can play the shit out of the guitar. I've seen him sitting with Jimmy James and the Vagabonds too. Wolf's on to him." "Oh," I said, "in that case, fuck Wolf. Let's go take care of business, Nat. We'll take him from under him. What's his name?" "Frankie Fields," he said. "You know, he's some skinny kid from Stepney." I know him, I said. "He's a tall, wiry geezer. He's got jet black, long wavy hair. He's about my height, but he's even thinner. Have you seen his eyes? They're sadder than your mum's coffin." "He's a friend of Kaz's. I've heard him play the piano in their public bar. His dad drags him around to blag points off people. Man, he's amazing. I've seen his eyes blackened. His drunken old man beats him up." "That's him," Nat chimed in. "He was rolling off licks I've never heard the likes of with Graham Bond. He was so fucking exciting, he'd give me the goosebumps. Ginger Baker was grinning his head off playing the drums behind him. I thought to myself, fuck, he's just the bloke Charlie needs to finish that song. He'd burn on 60s and 7s. He's as intricate as Jimmy Page, and he's even more rhythmic than Steve Cropper. You've got to finish that record with him, Charlie. We've got to make a lot of money, because, see, I don't think Wolf's going to call on my services no more." So they get in the car, and drive around London, and they turn up at Frankie's house. We could hear Frankie Fields blasting out blistering Buddy Guy riffs on the street when Nat got lucky parking right outside Spiders. He sounded like the Chicago L catching a ride on the Circle Line. Nat held his finger on the buzzer, kicked at the door plate furiously, and was considering punching out of pain to gain entrance when Spider turned up with his girlfriend, the singer Goldilocks. He was holding a string bag, chock-a-block full of cheap Spanish wine, Johnny Walker, and cans of Heinz baked beans. When he opened the door, it released an overwhelming pot puree of cat pee, hash fumes, and guitar playing that stung my ears. "Oi, shut the fuck up," Spider shouted, handing the string bag to Goldilocks, who disappeared into the kitchen to make dinner. "Sorry about the pee," he smiled at Nat. "Me cat's getting on." Opening the back door, I flashed on Frankie's gold-flecked melody maker. I couldn't believe he weren't playing the Les Paul. The tone he was coaxing from one pickup was amazing. He passed me the joint from his chapped lips and played the opening chords to My Generation. His Vox AC30 amp was too powerful for his little cubbyhole. It resonated feedback around the room. He was making a glorious racket. Don't no one ever feed you," he said. "Your suit pants are dirty," I replied. "So what? Listen to this, mate, if you will." I fell across the floor laughing, tripping over dirty clothes, posters, LP covers and Mars bar wrappers. We cuddled, landing on his mattress. "That fucking 6s and 7s you're recording is a piece of crap," he said, playing the chord progression, adding overtones I've never dreamed existed. Flattening the noise with the heel of his palm, he said, "I'll make it for you. I'll make you a top 10 smashing hit." It was freaky. He spoke like me. He sounded like me. We looked like twins in deep blue velvet suits. His cheekbones were thinner than mine, but his brown eyes gazed out into the world, searching for the same truth I knew lurked somewhere. A Muddy Waters 45 sat on his record player. He was wearing an identical paisley shirt to mine, except for his wasn't ironed, which I didn't like much, because he'd need a lot of polishing, especially his shoes. They were scuffed up and horrid. His clothing was as dirty as his guitar playing. He was my funky twin. Tapping my legs, my foot never stopped moving, stomping the beat on the carpet until we smelled Spanish omelette cooking up in the kitchen. With pimentos, potatoes and onions all frying up in olive oil and baked beans on the boil, we slunk out his bedroom, slugging back the cheap Spanish wine we ate in the kitchen like there was no tomorrow. Wiping up my plate with a slice of hovis, I told Nat to get on with the papers. Sign him, I said. Frankie agreed. We spent the night in his bedroom, talking music, playing records, smoking joints and polishing off a tub of Wall's ice cream, of Wall's vanilla ice cream, which became a milkshake when he poured red plonk into it.
Oh, God.
I was meant to be with Paige, my girlfriend, and I forgot to phone her. She was off to Scotland with school friends in the morning, but I was digging Frankie. He was far more important than she was. I was figuring out all the possibilities and wondering how we could make a band to showcase his skills. He needed a singer who could fly above blues patterns. His singing was really atrocious. It was even worse than mine. But he was bloody a marvellous guitar player. His fingers were so fast, they flew like hummingbirds. I'd never heard anyone play like him. Spider finally tore the fuse out of the electric box that supplied the hat box-sized room with electricity after the sun appeared through a gap in the curtains. He promised he'd chop our hands off with his fire axe unless he got some sleep. And I had to see my girlfriend, so promising we'd meet again, I flagged down a cab in Ladbroke Grove. I was in the first-class compartment of the Flying Scotsman under the dome of the cavernous King's Cross station, kissing Paige goodbye when she whispered, "I love you, Charlie Six." I felt so embarrassed. I turned red right in front of her friends. She never told me off for missing the evening and never asked me why. I dug her tremendously, yet I knew our worlds were far apart. She came from wealth and privilege. Me, I just lucked into a few bob. I knew music would keep me out at night. When I heard music like Frankie's, it was the electricity that made me come alive. Despite my qualms, I found myself telling her that I loved her too. I'd never told that to anyone, except for my grandmother when she was giving me pocket money.